how well does the DJI Action 3 perform in a real world hiking scenario? Well, that's what I'm gonna find out this weekend, because me, my brother and sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law's brother are going on a little practice hike down in Sulphur, Oklahoma, in preparation for the big hike we're doing, where we'll be hiking Wheeler Peak in New Mexico. So we're super excited about the big hike, but also this little practice one, where we'll be testing out some of our gear, including my DJI Action 3. So let's head out and join up with the gang. So I originally purchased the Action 3 to replace my old GoPro, specifically for capturing some quality footage of this big hike. So I wanted to test out my configuration I'd be using while hiking and wearing a backpack, and also just generally test the performance of the camera and see what it can do. That didn't work. So I headed out and joined up with my friends, and the next morning, bright and early, we were ready to set out for the trailhead. I got up around 4 and it is now about 5 o'clock, and we are heading down to Sulphur, because here's the thing, it turns out in Oklahoma, it gets like really hot in August. Have you found this to be the case?
Yes, even at night, very hot.
The coolest time of day is just before dawn, so 5, 6, 7 o'clock. We're gonna try to get the early hours of the hike in at that point and finish up before noon. That is the plan, so let's head on down to Sulphur. The low light performance of the Action 3 is obviously not exceptional, but for an action camera, I found it to be serviceable. At the end of the day, it is an action camera and works best when there's plenty of light on the subject. But that being said, it does capture at least a somewhat usable image in dark conditions like this. So here we are at Veterans Lake, where we will be beginning this hike. This is, I think, about 12 or 13 miles long. And the whole point of this is we're doing a practice hike for a peak we're going to be hiking in the fall, and that is Wheeler Peak in New Mexico. It's the highest peak in the state. So we are testing out our gear, our backpacks, in my case, my new camera, in a controlled environment here in our home state of Oklahoma. So let's hit the trail. So one thing I've seen online with action cameras, both GoPros and the DJI, is that the stabilization, electronic image stabilization, does not work the greatest in low light. It requires a high shutter speed to make it look nice and smooth. So here we are, it's, you know, fairly low light conditions. The sun isn't up yet. I had this on 4K 30 rock steady. How does it look? We see the moon up there, a light source. Is it kind of wobbly and funky looking? This seems most noticeable around a light source, like these lights you can see in the background. It's pretty much something you'll see with a slow shutter speed no matter what camera you're talking about. You'll see this streaking around something that's producing light, but I think the stabilization, whether it be hyper smooth or rock steady in the case of this DJI camera, I think it accentuates it. So this is Steven, Katie's brother and good friend of mine.
Out here on the trail, breaking in some new hiking shoes, getting the early jump, sun's coming up, practicing for a bigger hike, which will be a much more substantial hike than I've ever done before this coming fall. So getting pumped, ready to go. So another factor of this Wheeler Peak hike coming up is we're also going to be camping for 3 nights in Red River, New Mexico, which is going to be awesome and kind of a new experience for some of us. How are you feeling about that? Yeah, feeling good. Never done an overnight camping situation, so looking forward to that. It'll be something new, something different. Always enjoy getting outside and doing new things, so can't wait.
So I can't help but notice you've picked up a little traveling companion.
Yep.
What's the story with this guy?
We got a stone. It's a nice sized stone, just heavy enough to be miserable, but it needs to be taken somewhere, and so we're gonna do that.
We already have, actually.
The plan, yeah, I mean, we've already moved this stone almost a mile. The plan is to dump it in the lake. I feel like that's where it needs to be. His name's Brian. Nice, hefty stone. The plan is to get Brian in the Lake of the Arbuckles by the end of the hike. So keep you updated.
Steep little hill. So the horsefly situation is reaching a head, and the off is being broken out here because they're out of control right now. That's the thing about summer hiking in Oklahoma. Not only is it hot, going down to about 103 today, but also
that's way better.
Got some bugs to be concerned about. I'm also testing out my brand new 3-liter hydration bladder from Camelback. It's working out good so far. Nice, easy to use bite valve. It's about 35 bucks on Amazon. Link below, of course. But one thing you gotta really consider about these is that they have to be open in order to be able to drink water out of them. So I figured that out about 10 minutes into the hike, and it was a really good thing to learn. I told Steven I was putting my money on him leading Brian on the wayside about the 3-mile mark. I was hoping to give him inspiration, but how are you feeling about that now?
I'm feeling like the man knew what he was talking about when he said 3 miles. We've estimated this sucker at, I don't know, 12 or 15 pounds, and turns out that 3 miles starts feeling pretty heavy. I've just got to find inspiration in nature, in my companions. Some inspiration in my muscles would be helpful too. At this point, just put one foot in front of the other and don't chuck Brian into the woods like I kind of want to.
I was testing out some different angles I would want to capture when telling a hiking story, including this down-facing POV shot, because an angle like this can be very useful for a ridge hike scenario when you want to showcase the surroundings sloping away from you. It's a little dizzying, but it can come in handy. So we are about 2¼ hours in, about almost 5 miles. We are nearing Lake of the Arbuckles, which is our kind of destination for this loop we're doing. After 2 hours and 15 minutes of pretty regular filming on this camera, I'm down to about 48% battery, filming 4K 30 mostly, which seems like pretty decent serviceable battery life to me. So that's a positive. All of our gear is feeling pretty good. We're getting a little tired, a little sore at points for some of us, but definitely everything's working out well. My backpack is feeling great. How's Brian feeling?
Brian's doing well. We're ready to push through at this point. Really got a good momentum going. We know the lake's getting close.
I somehow have this suspicion that on Wheeler Peak, carrying rocks will be less of a focus, more in favor of like the beautiful vistas and just like surviving in the high altitude and all those things.
That's probably reasonable.
I think there's some wisdom there, and I don't want to couch this as a challenge because I feel like I might end up seeing you carrying a rock on Wheeler if I do that. So
yeah, we'll keep it challenge free. How's that?
Okay, so what's our new plan with Brian?
So my compatriot Isaac over here just had a lovely idea that even though Brian needs to be near the lake, that if we don't put him in the lake, we can sign or scratch our names into him somehow, claim Brian, put him in a memorable spot, and come back years later and reflect on this trip.
We're here at the Lake of the Arbuckles. Only took us about 2.5 hours to get here. Really good little 5-mile hike, and I think our loop back is a little bit longer, but so far the camera is holding up good. I'm still on my first battery. So I only have 2 batteries for my Action 3, but I think those will last me through most of the hike, if not all. But my plan, in case I start running low on battery, is I have a Anchor power bank that'll be in my backpack, and I have a long charging cord so I can plug in the camera even while we're going down the trail. The downside is I don't have any way to charge the batteries outside of the camera because I didn't get the Adventure Combo, which has that handy dandy multi-function battery case which you can charge the batteries in. So they have to be in the camera for me to charge them. That may be something I'll try to change in the future because that is kind of inconvenient. But the battery life is, from what I've seen, pretty good on this camera. Like I said, 2.5 hours, 5 miles of hike I'm down to just a little below 50%, so I don't think it'll be too much of an issue, but I probably will be charging the camera at some point with the cord hanging out of my backpack at some point on the hike. So we have left the Lake of the Arbuckles behind, had a nice time of rest and relaxation there, and we are headed back now. It's been a good hike so far. I think we're all doing fairly well, and we are definitely identifying areas where we can improve for our actual big hike. So, gonna put our heads down and head back to the truck. I tried out doing a hyperlapse with the camera mounted on my chest. I'd say the main takeaway from this is it's best to not do this when the sun is at your back because your shadow looks kind of funny in hyperlapse sped up, wobbling around in front of you. But the footage is usable if having a sped up walking shot was important somehow to your story. An area that a lot of cameras struggle is in dappled sunlight conditions in the woods. This is just a pretty difficult dynamic range environment, and footage in this lighting condition often just doesn't look that great. Overall, I would say though, with this footage, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. There's good detail in the shadows and the highlights, and it's looking natural and not super drab and boring and just flat like it can look sometimes from some cameras. I'm still testing out this camera's reliability, and I've had no issues with it freezing up or anything like that on this entire day of hiking. We are beginning to feel the effects of the 92-degree heat at about 10:45 this morning. It's definitely starting to heat up, but the camera isn't overheating, and that's one respect in which, from my understanding, the DJI Action 3 is much better than the GoPros is the area of heat tolerance. So far so good. I'm loving having the 4K 120 frames per second capability on this camera. This is new for me compared to any of my previous cameras, so it's really cool to be able to get this high definition footage and slow it down 4 times or even 5 times depending on what frame rate you're editing in. So I feel personally like this was good experience and good preparation for doing a big hike. My pack feels good. It's probably not the ideal pack. It doesn't have a waist strap, but it feels pretty good.
For the fact that this is not like a hiking pack in any way, it's just an off-the-shelf old backpack. It's felt comfortable today. I don't have it terribly heavily loaded, which may have to do with that, but pack feels good, shoes feel good. I really like the trekking poles. It's definitely something that if the trail is amenable to it, I think I would use on the Wheeler hike. Definitely enjoying the experience, and we'll look forward to the trade-off of lower temperatures but higher elevation, you know.
Somewhat
hike.
better views. We have a couple of nice overlooks here at points, but I'm expecting it to be kind of picturesque.
Yes, just a little.
This was definitely a good practice hike and a great shakedown of all our systems, from backpacks to shoes to food and of course camera gear. I had no issues with the DJI Action 3. It's been performing really well up to this point, and I definitely gained some valuable experience with operating it while on the trail. So we all felt much more prepared for our goal of climbing Wheeler Peak in New Mexico after this experience in the low, steamy altitudes of Sulphur, Oklahoma.